we're planting into that left heel. We're pulling everything, and that's giving the stretch.
So, how's it going, guys? Today, I'll be talking about debunking a common myth about how to transition the first move in the downswing. And so I'll demonstrate what that is. So, a lot of times, we're told from the top, so if I go to the top here, that we need to bump our left hip towards the target, so this way, right? So, in order to get our pressure and weight forward. However, I want you to notice the difference between these two different movements and how this slider on my foot reacts. So watch this. So I'm gonna do the same thing, the classic, bump the left hip toward the target, or the lead hip. So that's me bumping, right? And then I'm gonna do the second one here that we're gonna discuss. So, if you look at those two different movements, I want you to decipher which one will produce more power and speed and consistency. And then we'll get into the topic of today's video. So, what I'm going to do now is demonstrate those two movements once again, and then explain the difference and why bumping the lead hip toward the target isn't the most efficient way to move as the first move in the downswing. So, I'm going to do the first one again of bumping the lead hip toward the target. So I go to the top, now bump, right? And then come through. Then I'm going to do the second one. And I want you to see what the difference is. So, as you probably saw, the difference between those two different movements is where my lead knee is positioned and my lead hip is positioned. So for the first one where we bump toward the target, when I go to the top, my lead hip is getting outside my lead knee joint, right? Compared to the second one, my lead knee is ahead of my lead hip joint. And so, why is that such a critical piece? Well, we know that we have joints within our body, and within our bodies, the most ideal way to move is in a stacked position. And so, when it comes to bumping our hips towards the target, so if I go to the top here, if I move my hip outside my knee joint, the hip is a more mobile joint than our knee, right? So our hip is more mobile, our knee is more stable. And so if we move the hip outside the knee, then that's going to contribute to an injury if we kept going. So what happens is we get to a certain point where we no longer can rotate the hips, right? So compared to the other move I do, where I have the knee outside my hip, we can see that my hip is inside my knee joint, right? And so now we're having it where this stable part is leading, and then the mobile joint, which is the hip, is rotating around it. So that is why that myth of bumping the hips towards the target isn't the best way to move in transition. And what I do is explain the benefits and how we produce more speed to make sure that we get this lead knee outside of our lead hip joint, or vice versa, our hip inside our lead knee joint. And we'll discuss it further. So, how's it going, guys? When you take a look across my content, with all my different students, you may notice that some things that I have them do, or what I may say, seem kind of funky. However, with that, the key to understand is that it is personalized for them. So, how do you get to the point of understanding what you need to change personally for you, instead of worrying about certain changes that another person makes and trying to copy it and it doesn't work for you? Well, the key to understand is that you need a diagnosis. So, with that, I will be doing an assessment along with an evaluation before making certain changes within your golf game. So, if you're ready to get assessed and get things personalized for you to improve your golf game, comment down below, assess, and let's get started. So, what I'm going to do next is define the terms of that certain move to help us develop more power and speed compared to just bumping our lead hip towards the target. So, I'm going to put the club down real quick, and I'm going to get an anatomical position, right? So, my legs are stacked, my hips are stacked over my knees. There's nothing moving at this point. Then, so if I internally rotate my knees, right? So in this way, we can see how my hips are outside my knees, right? And so with that, it's harder to rotate, right? And to shift back and forth. Compared to if I externally rotate my knees, so out this way, outside my hips, now it's easier to rotate, right? So with that being said, the reason why this move in a downswing with the lead knee will help us to create more speed is because it enables us to create more ground pressure, so more ground reaction forces. Now, why is that? Well, because when we get that lead knee to get ahead of the lead hip joint, you see how when I come, I'm moving forward, but also down, right? So forward and down. And then after that, right, so Newton's law, equal and opposite forces. So if I go down, then I'm going to move back up later, which is the vertical forces that we need to create more speed, which a lot of times we see with a lot of the longest pros. They have this sort of squat move, and then after, then they move out of it, kind of like a vertical jump. Compared to when it comes to bumping this hip, right? First of all, the reason why we're not going to create as much speed is because if you look, I haven't went down towards the ground, right? I've stayed up. And so what I'm doing is I'm already losing my vertical forces, and I'm not using the ground most efficiently. Compared to if I get it outside this knee, then I'm able to pressurize the ground better. And as you can see as well, the inclination of my pelvis, we can see that the lead side is lower than the trail side. And so a lot of times, some people might think, oh, well, if you do this move, you won't be able to shift your weight efficiently. However, because my lead side is lower, then my center of mass, my center of pressure actually is still going to be forward without me having to move my center of mass entirely this way. So, again, when I get this knee outside the hip, then I have down pressure to create vertical forces, and as well I still have the horizontal to still move forward to the target. And then from here, then because, right, we have this mobile joint and the stable joint, now I'm able to rotate up and back out of it in order to use that ground pressure to come up and finish and rotate my hips more. Compared to if I bump my hip this way, now you can see how my lead side is higher than my trail side. And from here, just based off of this hip joint being more mobile and this knee being more stable, I can't keep rotating. I'm going to have a stopping point. And that's going to reduce our speed. So with that, I want you to try that out. And then what I'm going to do is demonstrate with you a drill that will help you to feel this and implement this in your downswing. For the drill, what I want you to do is to use a mini resistance band right here. This resistance band is a part of the R.G_golf resistance band pack. So if you take one of these, what I want you to do to implement this downswing move is to put the band just above your knees, right here. And what I want you to do is spread out your stance, right? And what you'll feel is you'll feel some resistance from the band because you're spreading your feet apart. And so I want you to take your backswing here, and then from there, what I want you to do is spread the resistance, right? So create more, and then as you come through, I want you to lose it, right? So, in comparison, if I were to bump my hip, I would not create any resistance at all, and I wouldn't create that ground pressure like we want. So, again, a simple cue, go to the backswing, create some resistance, so externally rotate the knee. This lead knee is outside the lead hip, right? And then from here, to use those forces to go up and go vertical and rotate the hips more, then we're going to lose the resistance and come all the way through. So you can even implement this while hitting balls on the driving range. And I want you to do these movements first, slowly, without a club, to get used to the feeling. But essentially, that squat move that everybody talks about with the longest tour pros, this is what they're doing. Obviously, they're still shifting, right? But they're not bumping this hip. So as we move that lead hip lower and get that lead knee outside, they're going forward and pressurizing down, and then that creates the resistance. And then as we move up, then we lose the resistance and keep rotating through the shot. So let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments, and also some more content that you want to see.